My name is Amara Tekle, and I'm writing this at 3 a.m. in my Seattle apartment, unable to sleep because I received an email from my immigration lawyer 12 hours ago informing me that my H-1B visa extension has been denied, and I have exactly 30 days to leave the United States or find an alternative legal status to remain in the country where I've built my entire adult life for the past 7 years. At 26, I should be focused on advancing my software engineering career, building relationships, and planning for the future like other young professionals. Instead, I live in constant terror that a bureaucratic decision made by strangers in government offices could destroy everything I've worked to achieve, forcing me to abandon my career, my relationships, and my dreams to return to Ethiopia where economic opportunities are limited and political instability makes long-term planning impossible. I arrived in America in 2017 on a student visa to pursue a master's degree in computer science at the University of Washington, carrying with me the hopes of my entire extended family in Addis Ababa who had pooled their resources to fund my American education. My father, Tekle Wolde, was a high school mathematics teacher whose monthly salary was less than what I would later spend on textbooks in Seattle. My mother, Maron Hailey, sold traditional crafts in the local market to supplement our family income. They had sacrificed their own comfort for years, living in a cramped apartment and eating simple meals, so they could save money for my visa fees, plane ticket, and first year of tuition that represented their only chance to help one of their children escape the cycle of limited opportunities that had constrained their own lives. The student visa years felt relatively secure because I knew exactly what was required to maintain legal status, attend classes, maintain good grades, and follow immigration regulations that were clearly defined and achievable through my own efforts. I excelled academically, completed internships at major tech companies, and graduated with a master's degree in computer science with a focus on artificial intelligence and machine learning. When Microsoft offered me a full-time position as a software engineer with H-1B visa sponsorship, I felt like I had achieved the American dream that my family had sacrificed everything to make possible. But the transition from student visa to H-1B status introduced a level of immigration uncertainty that fundamentally changed my relationship with American life. Unlike student status, which depended primarily on my academic performance, H-1B status was controlled by factors completely beyond my control: annual visa lotteries, changing government policies, employer willingness to continue sponsorship, and bureaucratic processing times that could stretch for months or years. I discovered that my legal right to remain in America now depended on maintaining employment with a company willing to navigate expensive and complex immigration procedures, creating a power dynamic that affected every aspect of my professional and personal life. The H-1B lottery system meant that even with a job offer from Microsoft, my ability to work legally in America was subject to random chance rather than merit, qualifications, or employer need. The first year I applied, my number wasn't selected in the lottery, forcing Microsoft to withdraw their job offer and leaving me scrambling to find alternative visa options before my student status expired. I eventually found a smaller company willing to file an H-1B petition, but the experience taught me that no amount of education, skills, or professional achievement could guarantee my right to remain in the country where I had built my life and career. The psychological impact of living under constant threat of deportation was immediate and devastating. Every decision, from signing a lease to making travel plans to investing in professional development, had to be evaluated through the lens of potential visa complications that could force me to leave the country with minimal notice. I couldn't commit to long-term relationships because I might be deported before they could develop. I couldn't buy a car or furniture because I might need to sell everything quickly. I couldn't make career plans that extended beyond my current visa expiration date because I had no guarantee of being able to remain in America to pursue those goals. The work visa dependency created a form of employment prison where changing jobs or negotiating working conditions was complicated by immigration considerations that didn't affect my American colleagues. If I left my sponsoring employer, I would have a limited window to find another company willing to transfer my H-1B petition or face deportation. This dynamic gave employers enormous power over H-1B workers who might otherwise negotiate for better salaries, working conditions, or career advancement opportunities. I found myself accepting assignments, working conditions, and compensation packages that I would have rejected if my legal status hadn't been dependent on employer approval. The stress intensified during each visa renewal cycle, which occurred every 3 years and required extensive documentation, legal fees, and months of uncertainty while the government reviewed my application. Each renewal involved the possibility of denial, which would trigger a countdown to forced departure from America. I would spend months before each renewal deadline preparing documentation, consulting with immigration lawyers, and managing anxiety about bureaucratic decisions that could destroy my life without any appeal process or consideration of individual circumstances. The immigration uncertainty also affected my relationship with my family in Ethiopia, who had invested their life savings in my American education with the expectation that I would eventually be able to support them financially and potentially help them immigrate to America through family reunification programs. The constant possibility of deportation meant I couldn't make promises about future financial support or provide the security they needed to make long-term plans for their own lives. My success or failure in navigating the immigration system would determine not just my own future, but the economic well-being of multiple family members who had sacrificed for my opportunities. The breaking point came during the COVID-19 pandemic, when the Trump administration implemented policies that made visa renewals more difficult and increased deportation threats for foreign workers. I spent months wondering whether my visa would be renewed, or whether pandemic-related policy changes would force me to leave America during a global crisis when international travel was dangerous and employment opportunities in Ethiopia were even more limited than usual. The combination of pandemic stress and immigration uncertainty created anxiety levels that made it difficult to work effectively or maintain personal relationships. The deportation fear reached its peak when I received a request for evidence, RFE, from Immigration Services questioning aspects of my visa renewal application that required additional documentation and legal consultation to address. The RFE arrival meant months of additional uncertainty, while my lawyer prepared responses to government concerns that could result in visa denial. During this period, I couldn't sleep properly, lost significant weight due to stress-related appetite loss, and developed anxiety symptoms that affected my work performance and personal relationships. The isolation was compounded by the fact that most of my American colleagues and friends couldn't understand the constant stress and uncertainty that characterized my daily existence. They would offer well-meaning advice about career planning and life decisions without recognizing that my options were fundamentally constrained by immigration status in ways that didn't affect their own choices. When I tried to explain why I couldn't make certain commitments or take certain risks, their responses often revealed how little they understood about the psychological impact of living under constant deportation threat. The turning point came when I connected with Dr. Sarah Martinez, a therapist who specialized in working with immigrants dealing with visa-related anxiety and trauma. She helped me understand that the constant hypervigilance and decision-making paralysis I was experiencing were normal responses to living under sustained threat of forced displacement. Immigration uncertainty creates a form of chronic trauma that affects every aspect of psychological functioning, she explained. Your brain is constantly in survival mode because your safety and security are genuinely threatened by factors beyond your control. Through therapy, I learned coping strategies for managing immigration anxiety while still maintaining appropriate vigilance about visa requirements and deadlines. Dr. Martinez helped me develop techniques for compartmentalizing immigration stress so it wouldn't completely dominate my daily experience, while also connecting me with legal resources and advocacy organizations that could provide practical support for navigating the immigration system. I also began connecting with other H-1B visa holders through professional organizations and online communities where we shared experiences, resources, and emotional support for dealing with immigration uncertainty. These relationships were crucial because they provided understanding and validation from people who lived under similar constraints and fears. We developed informal support networks for sharing information about policy changes, legal resources, and coping strategies that help reduce the isolation that immigration stress can create. The legal advocacy work became an important part of managing my own immigration anxiety, while also working towards systemic changes that could improve conditions for other visa holders facing similar challenges. I joined organizations like FWD.US and the Immigration Voice that advocate for immigration policy reform, participate in congressional testimony about the impact of immigration uncertainty on skilled workers, and work to educate lawmakers about the human costs of the current visa system. The career strategy, one developed, involved building skills and professional relationships that would provide more options for visa sponsorship and potentially alternative pathways to permanent residency. I pursued additional certifications in artificial intelligence and machine learning, built a professional network that included immigration-friendly employers, and explored entrepreneurship opportunities that might eventually qualify for investor visa categories. The goal was creating multiple backup plans for maintaining legal status rather than being completely dependent on a single employer or visa category. The personal relationships aspect required honest communication with romantic partners and friends about how immigration uncertainty affected my ability to make long-term commitments or plans. I eventually met David, an American software engineer who understood the challenges I faced and was willing to build a relationship that could adapt to immigration constraints. Our relationship developed with the understanding that visa denial could force sudden separation, but we decided that the connection was worth pursuing despite uncertain circumstances. The family relationship challenges were addressed through regular communication about realistic expectations and timelines for my immigration status resolution. I had to help my parents understand that the green card process could take decades for Ethiopian nationals due to country-specific quotas, and that my ability to support them financially or sponsor their immigration was constrained by my own uncertain legal status. These conversations were difficult, but necessary for managing family expectations and reducing guilt about my inability to provide immediate security for relatives who had invested in my American education. Today, I work as a senior software engineer at a tech startup that is willing to support my green card application through the employment-based immigration process. While I still face years of uncertainty before achieving permanent residency, I've developed better strategies for managing immigration anxiety while building a meaningful life within the constraints of temporary visa status. I've learned to make decisions based on probable scenarios rather than worst-case fears, while still maintaining appropriate caution about immigration requirements. The advocacy work has connected me with lawmakers, policy researchers, and other stakeholders who are working to reform immigration policies that create unnecessary uncertainty and anxiety for skilled workers who contribute to American economic growth and innovation. I've testified before congressional committees about the impact of immigration uncertainty on mental health, career development, and family relationships, trying to put human faces on policy debates that are often conducted in abstract terms. The experience has taught me that immigration status affects every aspect of life in ways that are difficult for people with citizenship or permanent residency to understand. The constant uncertainty creates chronic stress that affects mental health, career planning, personal relationships, and basic life decisions that most people take for granted. The visa system creates power dynamics between employers and employees that can be exploitative and limit professional advancement opportunities for talented workers who are constrained by immigration dependencies. Key resources and solutions that made the difference. The American Immigration Lawyers Association provides directories of qualified immigration attorneys who specialize in employment-based visa cases and can provide guidance on complex immigration procedures. Mental health services specializing in immigration-related trauma and anxiety offer culturally competent therapy for people dealing with chronic uncertainty about legal status and deportation fears. Professional organizations like the Immigration Voice and FWD.US provide advocacy opportunities, policy information, and community support for immigrants navigating the American visa system. Employee assistance programs at immigration-friendly employers often provide legal consultation, mental health resources, and practical support for workers dealing with visa-related stress. Online communities and support groups for H-1B and other visa holders create networks for sharing information, resources, and emotional support from people facing similar challenges. Financial planning services that understand immigration constraints help visa holders make sound financial decisions despite uncertain long-term prospects for remaining in America. Legal aid organizations provide low-cost immigration services for people who cannot afford private immigration attorneys but need professional guidance on complex visa issues. Policy advocacy organizations work toward immigration reform that would reduce unnecessary uncertainty and create more predictable pathways to permanent residency for skilled workers. Today, when I meet other visa holders who are struggling with immigration anxiety and deportation fears, I tell them that the stress they're experiencing is a normal response to genuinely difficult and uncertain circumstances. The immigration system creates real constraints and threatens real consequences that affect every aspect of life planning and decision-making. Getting professional help for managing anxiety is important, but so is working collectively to change policies that create unnecessary suffering for people who are contributing to American society and economy. Your mental health and well-being matter, and you deserve support while navigating a system that treats human lives as administrative details rather than recognizing the profound impact that immigration uncertainty has on individuals, families, and communities.